So let's say you're a fresh Savage Raider, but you have had difficulty finding a static because of a lack of resume that's FF blocks. Or maybe you work in retail where they are actually a secret sweatshop because they have no clue what a consistent schedule is. Or maybe you are in a static, but is having performance problems and you need more experience to help your members. All of these scenarios and more are where the Party Finder comes into play. Also known as being in a pug or a pickup group, this is an extremely important aspect of Savage raiding in Final Fantasy 14 that gets overlooked by many fresh raiders because of the many terrible stories of hopeless groups. When in reality the situation is there actually isn't much difference between a Party Finder group and a static group. In this video, we'll go over the advantages and disadvantages of being in a Party Finder instead of a static. Then go over how to maximize your success as a Party Finder raider. I have a lot of experience in both statics and Party Finder through the years of raiding, and I can say with confidence that using Party Finder in raids has a bad stigma. But how they work is actually closer to statics than what people would think. So here are the actual advantages of being in a Party Finder instead of a static. First is flexible scheduling. You only had to worry about your schedule versus 8 other people. Thus, you can jump into Party Finder whenever you want, no matter how crazy your life is. This is by far the strongest and most prominent advantage to being in Party Finder. There will almost always be people willing to do relevant content no matter what time it is, which also means you can run as long as you want and as much as you want. You may do 2 hours one day, but 8 hours the next day and do it 5 days a week. Being this inconsistent would never happen in a static. Second is seeing a variety of scenarios. Many would say this is a disadvantage, but I would beg to differ. It is because I meet many scenarios that I have learned multiple strategies within a fight, which leads to constant overall improvement. The best example I can provide is E10S, where Shadowkeeper is using the 3rd tank buster and a party does not have a warrior. In multiple learning and clear parties, I have gotten lucky to having a warrior, and therefore home gang was available to make that tank buster a non-issue. But what if you did not have a warrior? Well, your healers will be forced to heal through that damage, and your tank has to kitchen sink their cooldown to survive. So I eventually fell into that scenario where my main tank was a gunbreaker, and I eventually learned that throwing a sentinel or rampart buff intervention made handling that tank buster extremely more comfortable. And before then, I had a very low opinion of intervention. Now I find whatever way I can to make use of this. Without having that scenario happen to me, I would have never learned that. And in a static, it is very possible to fall into that level of comfort where you aren't exposed to such things. Third is being involved in the overall raid scene instead of being isolated to your static. Every data center has their Party Finder heroes where if they jump into your party, you know your chances of success has increased. But what if you can be one of those people as well? There are multiple raiders that enjoy jumping into Party Finder specifically to teach new raiders how to beat a raid floor. You can easily be any of these people and become more recognizable the more you attend Party Finder. This is an advantage because this elevates the raid scene as a whole. While in a static, it is pretty easy to just not be a part of the overall scene because you're off doing your own thing. Last one, and I think this advantage is very minor but still worth noting. Being a Party Finder raider gives you less pressure to talk on voice comms. While I believe communication is very important to a Savage environment, it is a daunting task for some, and I believe statics can try too hard to get everyone talking. In a Party Finder environment, the idea is to be efficient with your time, and therefore voice comms are mostly there to listen to your shot caller and nothing else. This is if your party even cares to have the option to use voice in the first place. Now, let's get into the disadvantages of being a Party Finder raider. First, and most notably, Party Finder strategies can be not optimal. Naturally, a Party Finder aims to be as brain dead as possible, which means there can be some aspects that can be easily improved, but are not since they can require more coordination. For example, in E9S, there is the Happy Bramble strat and the Myth Bramble strats. Happy Brambles prioritize uptime, while Myth Brambles prioritize safety. And there are a lot of argument involved in which is better. Second, Party Finder can be pretty fickle. There has been more than a few times where progression parties disbanded after a couple of wipes. And this can be even after 15 or so minutes of waiting for the party to form up. Meaning there can be days where you feel like you got nothing done. This can be especially prominent when you're more fresh to the experience. Third, while you improve individually, it is difficult to feel party synergy. Statics have the advantage of being able to adjust to one's personal habits and eventually fall into a flow state where everyone is doing a highly optimized choreographed dance. Nothing is as great as two healers or two tanks working in perfect harmony. Unless you get lucky with repeat members, it is hard to replicate that in a Party Finder environment. Lastly, Party Finder has substantial issues during Week 1 progression. This is the time where guides are informed by the guide makers and parties are learning different strategies. This can force some confusion when hopping from party to party, and therefore some strife. Within a static, this doesn't matter since you simply make your own strategies, then improve them as time goes on. Now, I'm sure someone would notice that I did not mention anything about Party Finder's general skill level compared to statics. This is where I burst a lot of bubbles here. I can only speak for the North American scene, but the general skill level between statics and Party Finder are roughly the same. What I mean by this is the level of competence are within similar ballparks. Your static can fail just as hard and prove to be as unsatisfactory as a Party Finder group. Except you are in a much more invested scenario where you have to choose if you want to stick it out or leave. There have been several times where I've been in statics that outright failed to make any headway within a tier, and then I've found substantial success in the Party Finder, and was therefore enabled to learn much more about the next fight before the weekly reset. And a lot of that is indeed because of those Party Finder heroes I mentioned earlier. So I couldn't figure out a clever way to add this, but if I don't say it, I'll be forced to AFK and Blinza for 12 hours. If you find this video enjoyable and helpful, be sure to leave a like. Or if you think it's hot garbage, be sure to leave a dislike as well. Leaving comments also lets the YouTube gods know that this deserves to be shown to more people. I would really appreciate it. So, now that you have a bit more knowledge of how raids and Party Finder works, I'll go over 5 tips in how to make your raids as successful as possible. Number 1, communicate. I mentioned this before, but holy crap is this important. Please, for the love of God, talk to your party. If you know how to handle a mechanic but the party does not, inform them. If you're confused on the mechanic while they're doing it all well, inform them. Everyone wants to clear the fight, that's why you're here. Helping each other get through the fight is the best way to do that. Number 2, perfect your rotation. You've probably heard this a lot, but it's for good reason. Killing the boss fast means less mechanics to deal with, which means less ways for the party to fight. Go to your training dummy and just spend some time doing an optimized rotation. It's not uncommon for raiders to spend hours on a training dummy, because you want to bake in your rotation to muscle memory. The less you have to think about your rotation, the more you can focus on the fight itself and what your party members are doing. You can typically find all the rotations on the Balance Discord. Number 3, pick the correct party. If you need to learn a fight, join a learning party. If you're confident that you can clear the fight, join a clear party. If you want your weekly loot, join a weekly party. This should be fairly obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people will join learning parties expecting to clear within a lockout. On the other hand, just because you've seen it in Rage once doesn't mean you fully understand the mechanics, so you may very well hold back the clear party from clearing, and you need to join another learning party instead. And if that party you need is not available, just make your own, and make it as accurate to your progression as possible. Nothing is more aggravating than misleading players with a bad description on where your progression is. Number 4, if you're leading, know when it's time to kick people. You don't need to make a big deal about it, but if someone is severely holding the group back, it is unfair to make that group suffer just because you want to be a nice team leader. Sometimes you just need to kick that person so the rest of the party can succeed. On the other hand, don't take it personally if you're kicked. You have many opportunities for that redemption arc. Number 5, fill up your friends list. While there are some bad apples in Party Finder, there are definitely going to be good people that you enjoy doing content with. Add them, keep in contact. You can make friends even if you don't have a static. Because if you decide to join a group and there's a spot needing to be filled and your friend can fill in that spot, that's straight up more enjoyment for yourself. And probably your friend too. Hell, make enough of those friends and you can potentially make a static out of that. But even disregarding all of that, this is a game that can be used as a vehicle for social activity. You should always try to make friends whenever you can. Now, I can go over making use of ACT and FF logs to improve further, but that's a rabbit hole to be saved for another video. So let's recap. The 5 tips were: communicate with your party, perfect your rotation, pick the correct party, if you're leading, kick if you need to, and make friends. We also went over the advantages and disadvantages of raiding in Party Finder. And I can confidently say I haven't gone over every detail, but this is enough to get all of you going. I definitely would enjoy seeing fresh faces in Savage content. And it's good for them and others to know that Party Finder is not a thing to be feared, but embraced. There's no way I would have been able to improve as a raider without it. But that's all I have for you guys. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next video.